Welcome to Pet Biz People, where pet pros come to grow. Hi guys, how are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Nice meeting you guys here. We have a guest today, and his name is Joe. I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm going to have you say it for us, Joe, because I'm horrible with last names lately.
Like it looks, Gelderman.
Gelderman.
Belgian
Awesome.
descent.
Belgian. There you go. All right. Another one. Got it. And tell us a little bit about yourself, Joe Gelderman.
So, my company is the Steering Group. So we essentially are an assessment company. We provide assessments for the hiring side, the selection side, or the coaching side, and the coaching side. Some of the assessments that we provide are just for the selection side. Some are for both. And the Steering Group has been around for almost over 20 years now. My father started it. I actually started in the sports world, worked in the sports world for 17 years, 15 years of it with the same professional hockey team. And I left that professional hockey team as the president of it about 9 years ago. Held about 6 different jobs with that professional hockey team. But in the last 9 years that I was there, I did essentially all of the hiring for us. We had about a 28-person front office and then some hockey ops staff that I did the hiring for as well. So it was a lot of hiring. And about 3 years into that hiring, into me taking over the hiring because of the role that I was promoted to, I started using assessments. I started using my father's assessments. And I was the vice president of sales at the time, and went to the president at the time, who is now the number 2 guy with an NHL team. The St. Louis Blues, but went to him at the time and said, look, I think this would be valuable to use these assessments. I'm not going to make the decision because it's my father's company. So I want you to meet with him and tell me what you think. So after the meeting, he was like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. So we started using those assessments, and it was a game changer. The hires that we made were all of a much higher quality. They're in the league that we were in. It's a professional hockey team. It was a AA level team. The Atlanta Gladiators. We were the Gwinnett Gladiators then. Changed the name. The league that we were in is the ECHL, and the ECHL has league meetings every year where all of the teams in the league, there's 32 teams. But all the teams get together every summer during the off season for hockey and have meetings where there's sales trainings for the salespeople, different classes you can go to, different round tables for sharing different things, best practices and things like that. And a couple years into using these assessments, I started getting calls from other organizations saying, you guys are bringing, because the turnover in minor league professional sports is generally extremely high, right? Because you're hiring guys that are right out of school or gals that are right out of school, college, but it's generally low-paying jobs, and you have to work hard in professional sports. I mean, and it's a regular job. It's a real job, and there's a lot of people that think, oh, I love hockey, or if it's minor league baseball, I love baseball, so let me go work there. And then they get there and they're like, whoa, I actually have to work. I don't just get to watch hockey and baseball all day. So the turnover is generally pretty high. So I started getting calls a couple years into using these assessments, and people were saying, you guys are bringing the same exact people to these meetings every year. Why is there no turnover there? So started telling them about these assessments that we use. So a bunch of those different teams started using assessments. And I actually still work with, now that I'm with the steering group and took over my father's company. I still work with a lot of those same people that I worked with then. Some of them are in the NHL now. There's a bunch of NHL teams that I work with on those assessments. Some of them are in the AHL, one step higher than the ECHL, and then there's still some in the ECHL that I still work with. So essentially an assessment company. Have worked in the pet industry for over 20 years as well, working mainly on the front end side, the dog walker or pet sitter side for hiring. It's a much different assessment. It's a different assessment that we use for that. But we also use the one that I was just talking about. We also use that with some of the larger companies that are hiring office staff to help them with their office staff hires.
Well, that's great, and I appreciate. I know Jessica's from Chicago, but as the Canadian, I was probably the only one that understood that hockey talk.
So. I was just sitting there waiting for you to jump for joy on the whole hockey stuff.
Joe was buttering me up. And
there is one team. There's one NHL team in Canada that I work with. The rest of them are in the States. But.
And Canada is not playing the U.S. in the Olympics yet, so we can all be friends.
We can get along
until that day.
Yeah. I'm curious, and I think it's really interesting what you talk about, where I think a lot of people in the pet industry don't know how important hiring is. And I think the turnover that you're talking about is in the hockey world is pretty similar to the pet world.
Right.
Is there any differences that you noticed when you started working with the pet companies that was like a unique part? Because you said you use a slightly different assessment. What are the kind of qualities or what kind of things do you sort of look for when you started working with pet companies?
Yeah, so the assessment that we use with in the pet world, it actually started with us working in the maid service industry, and it's a more frontline assessment. It's a much cheaper assessment. It's only $14.75 per assessment that you run, but it's designed for those frontline people, and it's designed for companies that are essentially sending people into other people's homes unsupervised, areas where that is really important, because it looks at are they likely to steal? Are they likely to use drugs while they're working? Are they likely to lie to you or the clients whose homes they're going into? Those are the kind of things that you really want to know. It's more of a risk-based assessment, right? It's not something there that if somebody does well on it, you're going to say, oh my God, this person's going to be a great fit, I'm going to hire them, right? It's more of okay, this person is qualified to move on in our process, right? As opposed to this person is probably going to end up being a liability for us or a headache for us. So we should probably think about moving on from this person.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility, obviously, for pet service companies, because you're going into people's homes, when they're usually not there. And do you find that when you started working with pet service companies, they were sort of uncomfortable? They were like, did you have to kind of convince them that this would be something was good for them? Because I know Jess can speak to this. Every business owner I've ever talked to thinks they're great at hiring.
So true.
I would say I would say there's two realms, right? There's people that think they're great at hiring, and then there's people that say, I hate hiring and I want something that's going to just make the decision for me. So it doesn't answer that side of it either. Yes. Right. But yeah, I mean, there's people that are definitely skeptical of it. And to be honest with you, those are the ones that become our biggest our biggest champions moving forward, because there's people that, a candidate fills out an assessment, and it comes back essentially saying this person is probably going to be an issue for you, right? But they fell in love with this candidate. Maybe they were desperate and they, hired them based on personality. I always tell people, don't hire on personality. Don't hire because you're desperate, right? But they hire them because they're desperate or they just really love them, right? They had the halo effect. So they wanted to disregard the assessment results. And then they hired that person and it said that they were likely to steal or they were likely to use drugs. And then it happened, right? So then they never question it again. And then they start telling everybody else about it. So those people, the people that doubt it, tend to become the biggest champions and the biggest believers because it's been proven to them, right? And there's a lot of data and research that goes into this. It's 100% validated. It's 100% EEOC compliant and legal everywhere except Massachusetts. There was another assessment that we used for years. The one that we're using currently, we just started using about a year and a half ago because the one that we were using went out of business. Not because it wasn't good anymore, just because the owner of that company had gotten up really old and up there in age and just decided that he was done with it and he was ready to not deal with it anymore. But that one wasn't legal in Massachusetts either because Massachusetts just has some really weird hiring laws. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think Jessica would agree with me. You have identified the two biggest mistakes that business owners make: hiring on personality, which I think is number one. I like
right.
this person, or I'd like to hang out with this person. Or the other one, which is even worse, is I know this person isn't right. I feel it in my gut, but I have to have someone to walk that talk tomorrow, and so I'm going to convince myself that let's give him a chance.
It's okay. It's okay. Yes. It'll all work out. Never does.
I tell people all the time, like, you need to have a couple things, right? You need to have a standard. You need to stick to that standard. And so you don't hire based on personality. You don't hire based on that, right? And because somebody would be fun to go have a beer with or fun to hang out with does not mean that they would be a good dog walker or a good pet sitter, right? Like, it's great, like, that's fine, but don't hire them. Just say, hey, let's go get a coffee or let's go get a beer, but don't hire them, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I tell people all the time that I think is super important is you need to look at hiring as an ongoing process and not an event, right? Keep that pipeline full. Look at it just like you would sales. You need to have a cycle. You need to have a funnel, just like you would have a sales funnel or want to have a sales funnel. You need to have a hiring funnel because just because you don't have to hire somebody right now, I've heard enough stories of, everything's going great. And then all of a sudden 3 people walk in and say, hey, I am moving to Colorado tomorrow, or I'm moving to here tomorrow, or, this just happened and I'm quitting today, or I'm quitting in 2 weeks. Right. And now you are desperate. Right. And you haven't had ads up. You haven't, you don't have to sponsor ads. You don't have to, be putting it out full force, but you need to still be trying to keep that funnel full so that when you do need somebody, you've got a list of people there that you can look into deeper. Right.
Yeah, I think that's right on the head. And I think that's a lot of what we do at Pet Biz is the idea of not just looking at what you have to solve in the moment, but do you have a plan in place? Because that's absolutely everyone who's owned a pet business has had that thing. And I always say it's when you've had a couple good weeks when there's been no issues and you start getting that uncomfortable feeling, like
you start gripping your desk a little harder when you sit down.
Right. And then suddenly
something's coming.
Yes. Then you suddenly get the email saying, hey, do you have 5 minutes? I just need to chat about something. So I will tell you a funny story, Joe, just for your own. So before you existed and before these things existed, I had gone years ago through a period where I was just having the worst time hiring and just couldn't find anyone. And so we went down a rabbit hole of looking at the people we had before who had worked and was there any commonality? And we went so far down the rabbit hole, we decided if you had worked at an ice cream shop at some point in your life, that was a quality that sort of translated. And I tell that anecdote of just with your experience across all of that stuff. Is there a quality that you found, like whether it's honesty or positive personality or something that's been consistent that you've noticed through your work, that's something, a quality that keeps showing up as being a positive thing to look out for?
Yeah, I mean,
Besides working at an ice cream shop.
yeah.
I stand by.
So before I answer that, Matt, I'll tell you, I've actually heard some really interesting analogies similar to yours where people are like, I'm not going to share exactly what most of them were because some of them are a little inappropriate, but they're like, hey, if this person is this or if this person is that or whatever, like they seem to work out better. So find me this, right? Like, this is what I'm looking for. Yeah, but in terms of that, like I would say, big picture, I would say no, right? Because it all depends on the person. I think the biggest thing that you need is integrity, though, right? And that's why I think like I'm not trying to make this into a commercial, but the assessment that we use now is called Integrity First, right? Literally for those reasons, because like when we switched assessments, just to give you a little backstory, when we switched assessments, when the old assessment said that, told me that they were going to be going out of business, I had already kind of been looking because we were having some issues with some of the back end stuff and all of that. But I had to kick it into high gear, and I met with like 20 different assessment providers to try to find the one that would be right for the pet industry and the maid industry, and the thing that would work based on my 8 years or 9 years, 8 years at that time, I guess, and my dad's 20 plus years of experience in the pet industry. Really narrowed it down after all those conversations, really narrowed it down to 2 different assessments. And the Integrity First one is most aligned with what I think is important, just based on my experience and based on feedback that I've gotten from, there's over 100, probably more than that, probably close to 200 pet industry people that we've worked with these assessments. So based on the feedback that we've gotten from them, and I think that integrity side is the biggest thing. And the stuff that Integrity First looks at really is geared towards that integrity side. And the other thing, the reason why I brought that up is on my business card, it actually says, when we hire for skills, we fire for attitudes. And when I was talking to the owner of Integrity First, we were trading emails, and in his email signature, he has essentially the same quote in his email signature, right? So
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think what's interesting is, and we talk about this a lot, is the idea with most businesses is that any part of your business, and this is the hiring part, there are so many components to be successful. And no one looks at it that way, where, this piece that you're talking about is important, then the onboarding of the staff is important, and then do you have a good training of the staff? And I think the big mistake people look at is they either have one piece that works, but they're not looking at the other pieces, where they say, I have a great training program, but they don't have a great assessment piece. So the person gets all the way to the end of the training and they're like, no, this didn't really work for us.
right.
And if you have another product discovered, which I've had the pleasure of using, and I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on describing it, is because I call it sort of HR in a box. That's how my mind looks at it, in the sense of it's sort of a software that is customized to your business.
Yeah.
Because I think HR is one of those things. Jessica, I'd love to get your point of view, but I find it's one of those things that people don't really understand if they haven't, especially a lot of people in this industry who haven't come from the corporation world where they've had experience with it. And so they have sort of a faint idea of what it means. But this product that I've had a chance to use, I think kind of brings all that together, especially for companies that are growing, where the HR part becomes a bigger piece and almost not, I don't want to say a headache, but a more complicated piece. And having this sort of centralized, and what I really love about the product is that it's customized to how you want to do the journey. And have you found pet service companies have used that as well? Is that something that you find that they've really enjoyed, or is that something that hasn't taken as much up by pet companies?
No, it's been great. Like, that was kind of a side effect. The people that own Integrity First actually own this other product that you're referring to, which is called Discovered. So Discovered is the company that owns Integrity First, and they also have a really good applicant tracking system, which is what you're referring to. Yeah. So as I was transitioning, the former Orion is the old assessment that we use. As I was transitioning people from Orion to Integrity First, there was one super forward-looking owner. Jessica probably knows her well. Kristen
Skelton.
She logged into her Integrity First account, and she was like, "This looks like it's built in an applicant tracking system, and I'm not entirely happy with the applicant tracking system that I'm using now. So can you tell me more about this?" So set up a call with her and the owner of Discovered, and we went through everything, and she was like, "This sounds great. I want to start using it." So she started using it. Then she told a few people, and told, they all told some other people. So yeah, we've got a lot of pet sitters now, dog walking companies, pet sitting companies that are using this applicant tracking system. And it's great. I mean, I love it. It's a relatively new thing for me, but I love it. I really enjoy getting on calls with people and kind of showing them through the process. Matt, Terry and I've had all kinds of fun talking to Terry about it and showing her around. She's a fun one to talk to, for sure.
Yes, it's another fellow Canadian up in Montreal.
Do you mind if I show your account in that, Matt?
Sure.
And I think it's important that people start going this route, because a lot of people, when they first start hiring, their HR department is what they dream of what it could be, but it's not legal or right. You know what I mean? It's like, this is what I would love my HR department to be. And it's, it's like you said, it's all happy-go-lucky, let's go have a beer. And it's not right at all.
Yes, especially with people who are younger who get into business, because you tend to hire people or sort of know, and sort of they have this sort of idea of what that is to hire people.
And they think that's right.
And they think that because it's fun. And
right.
And I tell you, Joe, as someone who's been in business 25 years, known different businesses, I would have killed for this product 10 years ago, and you'll show it here, how it interacts with everything from job postings to the assessments that you were talking about before, but also creates a thing that's manageable for someone who's not as comfortable in the HR hiring space, which I think is the big piece.
I said that to somebody the other day. I said, man, when I was hiring people for the hockey team that I worked for, I would have loved something like this. So you're all seeing this now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I should say this beforehand. Matt, you said, it's HR in a box. I want to specify it's the hiring side of HR in a box, right? It's the hiring side of it, and not all of the other stuff, right?
I wish. Soon, soon when we hire the robots to come take over HR.
So you don't have any active jobs right now. So this is a relatively new account, right? You guys just started using it and paused it a little while ago to get some back end stuff straightened out. But if the job was active, it would show up right here, right? So we got one job, and you can put as many jobs on here as you want. But there's one job. So we click on that, and all of the candidates. So essentially, it interacts directly with 9 different job boards: Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, 6 other different ones. But there's workarounds to make it interact. You can post jobs anywhere. They'll build a career page for you for your website that you can either embed directly into your website or link to, so that when people apply through your website, they get dumped right in and they go through the same process of answering your screener questions and all of that. So if somebody goes to Indeed and finds your job after you've posted it here, you post it here, they'll send it to Indeed and the 8 other places. But once they apply, they have to answer screening questions that are completely customizable, right? And they can be knockout questions. So this one, your first question here is, please list or select the option that best describes what job you're looking for. So if it's weekends only for Possum, they're going to get put right into rejected right now because you have that set as a deal breaker, right? But it also gives you the other information of what they're looking for, right? So you're going to get all of their answers. As long as they don't answer, if they answer one that's a deal breaker, then they're going to get automatically dumped into rejected when they come in. Yours is a hard one to look at because there. So it would look like that when they came in. It would just dump them right into rejected because they answered one of the things that you said you have to have or say yes to in order for us to consider. So when that happens, you don't even have to consider them, right? They just go right into that. But if they answer everything positively and you like the way that they answered things, then there's a automated process that starts for them. So they start getting messages. And to Matt's point, it's completely customizable. Most people, the first thing that they get is a link to do the Integrity First assessment. Once they complete that assessment, if they are qualified to move on to the next step based on their assessment results, then they get the next email. Right? So you don't have to do anything. If they're unqualified or not qualified to move on, then they automatically get sent to rejected. So you don't have to think about it. But that's where, these sequences start and are completely customizable. Right. So they'll get an email inviting them to, in your case, they're getting an email inviting them to complete a one-way video interview where you're providing them the questions and they film themselves answering them. Right.
Fantastic.
So once they answer them,
I'm in love with this already.
if they don't, and then there's also sequences of reminders too. So they get an email and a text asking them to do it. If they haven't done it, and this is customizable, there can be as many of these as you want or as few as you want. But in this case, there's one email, one text, and then one reminder email 2 days later, and one reminder text 2 days later saying, hey, you haven't done this yet. We'd love to learn more about you. Please do it. And then once they do it, it automatically moves them to the next status.
And
which
Joe, sorry to interrupt you. And just on that, because I know I thought people wouldn't like the one-way video, but actually found that people really like it. It's actually less stressful in a certain way, and from a person looking to hire, you are getting a kind of you're not in the middle of that process, which I think is such a fantastic thing for people who aren't as comfortable doing interviews and stuff. You're getting something, because what's really important here that you're hearing from my perspective for owners is get tools to help. Like, not everyone's going to be a great interviewer. Not everybody's going to be comfortable knowing who to pick. And that's totally fine. Every owner has a different kind of skill set. But these kind of tools kind of level you up, right? Even on the things that you're not comfortable with. That's why I like it so much. And then the candidates are all going through the same process, so that you're assessing them all the same based on these tools. Sorry to interrupt, but I just thought that
No
was
problem.
No.
And like to your point, the other thing that you can do. So this is Kristen's account actually that I was just talking about, right? So she has multiple jobs, but what she does is she gives them an option, right? So she sends them an email and says, "You have an option. You can either do the one-way video interview that we were just talking about, or you can book a live phone interview with us." So you can do either or. She gives them the option.
yeah. We're
So
going through a period where we don't like people as much, so that's why we're hiring.
Or we don't
that,
like talking to him as much, you know?
not to get too deep here, but the way that she's doing it is a lot more complicated and a lot more hands-on. So you're going to need somebody there. Like she has a staff, right? So, if you're a company that it's just you doing all of this, you probably don't want to give them the option because there's nothing automated here if you give them the option. Right? When you do it like you're doing it, it's automated. If they do it, they automatically get moved to the next status, right? So that next status would say, okay, somebody needs to come in and watch this video and decide what we're going to do next. And then you just manually move them to, we want to invite them to a second interview, which I think in your case, Matt, is a virtual Zoom interview, or it could be an in-person interview, or I didn't like their one-way video interview, so I'm just going to reject them, and you just move them to rejected or rejection letter sent, and it automatically sends them a rejection letter and saying thanks but no thanks, essentially.
This is beautiful. Like, I wish this was around when I was hiring all the time. Like, this would
hired.
What's that, Matt?
Think of all the people. I can think of the names of people I wouldn't have hired if I had this.
Right? Me too. It's just beautiful.
And again, like to Matt's point, it's super customizable. Everybody that's using it uses it differently. And one of the things that I think Matt and his team at Possum are doing really well, or I guess they haven't really gotten to this point yet, but they are using it for a lot of onboarding stuff, right? Because they've got statuses in here where they put somebody into this Possum virtual tour status, and they're going to start getting emails once they put it in here. They're going to start getting emails with what they want. You can put a link in there of the virtual tour of what you want them to get, and then the intro and video. So they do have that in there, right? So you're giving them an intro, the video. They actually have a little pop quiz that they make them do that you can put in there. And again, you can send them emails and texts and reminders of all of that.
And you know what I think is interesting, Joe, is that, and I've dealt with this a lot, is I think a lot of owners would see this and think, oh, I'm not really ready for that, or that's too much for me. And I think that's always the mistake that business owners make, which is that they don't see the amount of time that they spend doing this stuff, the amount of time if they hire the wrong people, how much that costs. And you make a mistake and you kind of, I always say it's like when you play Monopoly, you go back, you go back and you have to kind of start again. And that you have to get this and get this in place before you think you need it. That's I think the message I always say to business owners is, this allows you to do the things that you really enjoy doing with your business and help build it because you have these tools in place. And I think, and I know Jessica, because we've both been in business around the same time, we're looking at it going, I wish 10 years.
Well, and the other thing too, when you were saying that, it's like they think that they don't need it, but in reality, you need it now more than ever, for the one fact that what you think you're going to do without it will never happen.
Well,
ever.
And the onboarding part, Joe, and this is really interesting that you brought that up, is it's so, I've gone and talked to so many companies. When I talk to them, I'll say, hey, I want to talk to your staff. And one of the questions I always ask is, what do you wish you knew more before you started? What were the things you thought were missing in training? And it's so often that everyone had a different experience depending on, as Jessica knows, like with dog walking, you know, they do a lot of shadowing. So depending who was taking you out as the shadower, who was the person doing your onboarding call, what were the materials that you got. And by having this kind of system like this, you know that everybody has learned the exact same thing the same way, so that you don't have those issues when you have staff starting to do and say, hey, I never knew this, or I didn't know that that's what you wanted, or I didn't get that material. And I
Yeah.
think that's such an important thing that people don't put enough emphasis on when they're hiring staff, where they get in. I talking to an owner today where like, I can't believe this person doesn't know about how we do the keys, right? And you sort of like, and you have to look at them and go, well, who's responsible for that?
Just shake your head.
Yeah.
That's all you could do. Just shake your head.
And Joe, with this, all of this process that you have, what's the main feedback you get back from business owners once they've used all this stuff? Like, what is it? The stuff that me and Jessica are talking about, or is there other things you kind of hear and go, "Oh, wow, I never thought about it this way," and this is what it helped us with?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the what you and Jessica are talking about is big for sure. I'm actually going to go ahead and share again just so I can. I shouldn't have
See,
stopped.
we told you we weren't going to make you share, and you're sharing.
No,
anyway.
I didn't mind sharing this. I was just making sure. I just wanted to know what you were expecting. So, Matt, kind of to your point, right? And I guess I'll go on a little tangent just based on something that you said, but I always talk about expectations, right? Like from two perspectives. And I always say that they're both as important, right? Number one is the expectations of don't lower your expectations, have expectations when you're hiring, and don't lower your expectations. Again, back to the personality thing, don't lower your expectations of this just because you like the person. But the other side is have, make sure that you have candid conversations with these candidates at some point during the hiring process of your expectations for the job. Right. I would say early on in the process, we want to make the job look as attractive as possible. Right. But we need to make sure that they understand the expectations. We're not hiring you to just come play with dogs and roll around with dogs in the living room all day. Right. They need to know the expectations. So we want to make those expectations clear. But in terms of the feedback that we get, like one of the other things that I always talk about is consistency, right? Consistency with your process. So this is definitely going to make your process consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they have to go through the same process. But the other side of that is consistency with your let me try to find a good one. Consistency with your interview process, right? Because we want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples when we're making a hiring decision and not comparing apples to oranges. So we want to ask them all the same questions, right? We want to have a scorecard that if you have an office that's large enough to have multiple people that are touching this person during the interview process, or different people that are interviewing, we want to make sure that we are all on the same page. So in Discovered, you can actually put your interview questions in here, right? So this is actually her virtual interview, but we can switch it to the in-person interview, right? So these are the questions that we're asking if we're hiring for Possum, right? So when I'm talking to this person, or I can just go right in here and leave the notes. So all of the notes are going to live in this person's account, and anybody in our organization can see them. So Terry went in and left notes on this person, but you do that you can do that on any question. But then you can also create your own scorecard. Right? So what do we want to judge this person on? Professional appearance and communication was one that we had. And the other thing with those video interviews that we talked about is there's a lot of AI that's built into Discovered. So the AI actually rated this person on her video interview. And it rated her on her scorecard, on your scorecard based on her video interview. Right. So it rated her a 4 on professional appearance and communication. Um, and it, so, and it tells you why in each of the areas, but you also can go in and rate them and leave any notes during your conversation in their scorecard. So it leads back to that consistency. And that's the other biggest thing that I've gotten from people, Matt, is they love that it helps them be more consistent in maintaining the same process, because all of those questions are right there in front of them, right in here.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. Jessica's like, sign me up.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not hiring, but I'm like, I gotta find a way to get this in my system.
And me and Jessica always, when we have people on, we're always looking for some of these, like what I call these kind of like aha moments. So I think what you said there about expectations, but more importantly, not overselling the job in a way just to get, like, I've had so many managers and I'll hear them and I'm saying, you are selling a job that doesn't exist, right? You're not setting expectations for, I think people always don't realize how much harder it is. I used to always say it takes 3 months to get comfortable doing these jobs. And all of those things are so important, because if you don't set that properly and then they start doing the job and it's totally different than they thought, that's when they leave after a week or 2 weeks, or as I'm sure me and Jessica know, we never hear from them again.
And that, I mean, honestly, that's one of the biggest things I had to learn when I started hiring, right? Because I wanted, I was selling the job, right? Like I was selling the candidates on why they should take the job, instead of really evaluating whether they should be the right person, and had a lot of turnover early on, right? And then somebody taught me that, and early on, I let the job kind of sell itself. The job ad should be a sales job, right? Like whatever you're posting should sound super attractive, but you need to make sure that those expectations are clear at some point before that person accepts the job, and preferably not right before, right? Like you don't want to wait until the last step. Like they need to understand what they're getting into before they waste any more of your time, to make sure that it's a good fit, right? And you don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer and say, oh, you're going to be picking up poop all the time, you're going to be doing this. But they need to understand everything, right? There's going to be times when you walk into somebody's house and it's not a crated animal, and they got sick that day, right? So you're going to have to do this, and this, right? They need to understand that.
Yeah, no, and I know, Jessica, we're getting near our end of our time, but I just want to make the point, and one of the main things that me and Jessica talked about with anyone that we work with at PetBiz, one of our baselines was that they had to have experience working in the pet industry. And I think you see, talking to Joe, just the difference of having someone who, does what Joe does, who's never worked with the pet industry. It's such a unique space. I've had lots of people come from corporate world who've worked for me, and they look at me after about day 2. They look at us like we're a bunch of crazy pirates, like work in this industry. And so having someone who understands it, I think, is so important. It's why it's so great. It's been amazing, Joe. You hear this stuff, and me and
100%.
Literally, you can see me and Jessica's face, like. Ugh.
I
would have less gray hair. I'll tell you that much.
It's just to me. It's refreshing to have a partner like this at PetBiz, to be able to refer to everybody, because we know A, it works, B, it's beyond valuable, and C, you just have to have it. You know what I mean? Because it's just going to save you time, frustration, money, headaches. Bad decisions that you think you're making great decisions, even though you're not making good decisions, so it's just invaluable. That's the best word. It's invaluable.
I think it says a lot. And Matt, I appreciate, you guys using it with Possum, right? I mean, I think it says a lot that the two of you aren't just saying it, right? Like Matt's using it and
Mhm.
seeing it every day, and it's not just a theory, it's an application, right? Like that's one of my big things with any, like, I always get frustrated with different trainers and professional speakers and all of that because they always speak in theory, right? But Matt can speak to it from an application standpoint. So
Awesome.
Yeah. Amazing.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I would love to have you back on, again, to show us more, just so that people can see it, just because I think we just scratched the surface on what you can do for for us and the people that we work with. And I think that we definitely need to have you back on to scratch the surface even deeper as we grow and as everybody grows in their business.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, and the most important question, Joe, that we did not ask you is, who is your favorite hockey team?
Well, it's actually it's the St. Louis Blues, I would say, because
unfortunately, I can no longer recommend Discovered.
I was going to say this is not going to go well.
my boss for the first 12 years that I was with the team that I was with, I love him. He was an amazing boss. Still talk to him all the time, and he works for the Blues now. So he got to the Blues right before they won the Stanley Cup. So actually got to go to his house. He got the Stanley Cup for a day, so got to go to his house and drank out of the Stanley Cup in his basement, and spent a bunch of time with him. So with him and the cup. So they are officially my favorite team because of that. I got to drink out of the Stanley Cup in his basement because of the Blues. So it's going to be hard to wrestle that one out of me.
If you ever want to shame a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, you talk about the Stanley Cup, so you did it well.
So Matt's just going to delete this whole recording now.
Yeah, no. If it makes you feel better, I have the recording, so you're safe. And I'm not going to ask because hockey's not my sport. So but I do watch it, but it's not my sport. So that's Matt's thing. But thank you again for joining us, and we will have you on again, and we'll make sure everybody hears about you. So thanks again for having us.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening to Pet Biz People. If you love this episode, like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and add to your playlist. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere you love to listen. Want to be featured or ask a question? Email us at connect@petbizpeople.ca. And if you're ready to work together, book a call at petbizpeople.ca. We'd love to find the best fit for you. See you next time.